One of the rescuers who was there in those final hours, a man named Brandon Koalas, he said that life pivots on very small hinges. And it's just such a somber reminder, isn't it? How a totally ordinary day, a fun little adventure, can just turn into something irreversible. Let's talk about the story of John Edward Jones.
So we're going to walk through the events of November 2009, deep inside the Nutty Putty Cave in Utah. And really, it's a story about hope, about the absolute limits of human endurance, and an impossible choice that had to be made hundreds of feet below the surface.
And that, right there, is the central haunting theme of this story. It's a chilling reminder that some places, they're just indifferent to us, to our will. The cold stone, the deep dark, they don't care. And sometimes, a descent is final.
This was John Edward Jones. Back in 2009, he was just 26 years old. He was a medical student out in Virginia, married to his wife Emily, and they had a 1-year-old daughter. He was so much more than just a name and a headline. He was this man, really in the prime of his life, full of faith and love and this incredible spirit for exploration.
The whole reason he was in Utah was for Thanksgiving. It was a chance to get back, see family, and going caving in Nutty Putty, well, that was supposed to be this fun, nostalgic trip back to a childhood adventure for him and his brother, Josh. But, at 6 feet tall and almost 200 pounds, John wasn't the small kid anymore who could easily slip through these passages. And the cave itself, it had a bit of a reputation. It had actually been closed for several years because of other close calls.
So, about an hour into their exploration, the group kind of split up. John went off on his own to find this tight passage they called the birth canal. But instead, moving through that damp, winding darkness, probably just feeling his way along the slick limestone, he took a wrong turn. He entered an unmapped and much, much more dangerous vertical crevice.
Just look at those numbers. 10 inches wide, 18 inches high. That's the size of the fissure he slid into, head first. The numbers alone kind of force you to visualize the impossible physics of it all, the terrifying geometry of a perfect trap.
To put that into perspective for you, just imagine trying to squeeze your body through the opening of a clothes dryer. But it's not a smooth metal drum. It's unyielding, cold, damp stone, pressing in on you from every single side, deep, deep underground.
So here's the absolutely crucial, tragic detail. The very act of breathing, the thing keeping him alive, became the mechanism of his entrapment. To squeeze forward, he had to exhale. But when he did that, he passed a point of no return. The second he inhaled, his chest expanded, and he was wedged. Gravity did the rest, just pulling him deeper into this inverted, helpless position.
A massive rescue operation mobilized almost immediately. We're talking over 135 people, a human chain of expertise and sheer effort stretching from the surface down into the depths. They worked for 27 straight hours, all to save this one man trapped 100 feet in the silent earth. The scale of that effort alone is just a testament to how much hope they all had. For more than a day, it was just this brutal race against the clock. See, being upside down puts an immense and ultimately fatal strain on the human body. Every single minute that ticked by, the pressure on his organs, the blood pooling in his head, it was all bringing him closer to the end. It was this slow, physiological countdown happening in the total dark.
This was their best shot. The plan was mechanically sound, but just executing it in that impossibly tight space was another story. It meant drilling into the sweating cave walls to set these anchors for a powerful rope and pulley system. It was their one real hope of overcoming the crushing force of gravity and friction that had John pinned.
And you know what? For a moment, it worked. After hours and hours of agonizing effort, the ropes went tight and they managed to lift him. It was this moment of pure, unfiltered hope, the absolute peak of the entire rescue. For the first time in that suffocating darkness, it really felt like they were going to get him out. And just like that, all of that hope was shattered. In an instant, the anchor point, the linchpin of the entire operation, it just gave way. The sound of that failure, this sharp, sickening crack, must have just echoed through those tight passages. The sound of absolute despair. And the reason why, it's just heartbreaking. It wasn't the cave's fault. The rock itself was solid. According to that same rescuer, Brandon Koalas, it came down to a simple, devastating human error: the wrong drill bit. And with that, John fell back into the crevice, wedged even tighter than he was before.
That catastrophic failure didn't just reverse their progress, it made his situation so much worse.
At this point, the mission changed. The frantic energy of the rescue, it just faded, and it was replaced by this quiet solemnity of providing comfort. They knew the chances of getting him out alive were gone. The focus now was just on that unspoken bond of shared humanity, staying with him, making sure he wouldn't have to die alone.
They managed to run a radio wire down to him. His wife, Emily, was able to speak to him, this final, fragile goodbye from the surface. She told him she loved him, told him he needed to keep fighting to come back to her and their kids. And he told her he loved her too, and that he was going to get out. It's just an unimaginably poignant moment, that final connection across 100 feet of solid rock.
Brandon Kowalis was right there with John in his final moments. He was talking to him, trying to get a response, and then John's body just began to convulse. And then there was only stillness. The strain on his body had just become too much. After 27 hours inverted in the earth, his heart gave out.
After John was gone, officials and his family were faced with this impossible choice. Trying to recover his body would be incredibly dangerous, risking the lives of more rescuers in that exact same unstable passage. It could take weeks. So, with the family's blessing, they made the agonizing decision to let the cave become his final resting place.
So, the entrance was sealed with concrete. And this wasn't an act of surrender or giving up. It was a deliberate act of reverence. Nutty Putty Cave, a place of adventure for thousands, was transformed forever into a tomb, into hollow ground.